Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Joker. This was directed by Todd Philips and stars Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, ZZ Beetz and a variety of others. The film really focuses on Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix, a troubled man, struggles to find his place in the world. He still lives at home with his mother and she's the only person he really cares for and cares about. And there's a strong bond between them, both of them. The only joy he has in life is his job as a party clown and ultimately doing a variety of jobs dressed as a clown. And this is the only thing that sort of gives him hope and joy. And he really is disregarded in a lot of ways and people don't really care about him and he struggles with that. And after an event on a train, he ultimately is transformed. He's sort of freed from that. He doesn't feel stressed or worried anymore. He accepts who he is and he ultimately goes down the path of becoming the Joker that everybody knows. And it all builds to quite an interesting ending. The first word that really comes to mind with this film was wow. I was really blown away by this film. It wasn't quite what I expected, but I still loved it anyway. There were so many things to it I really enjoyed. And what made it so interesting, it wasn't what I expected. And so it was refreshing, original and unique in its storytelling and the story it was telling. And I really was blown away by this film in so many ways. I think Todd Philips is fantastic. I agree there's a lot of similarities between Taxi Driver and this film, but more in the way things look and feel rather than character. Like the Travis Bickle character is sort of living in a dark and disturbed world, much like Arthur Fleck is, but they're sort of very different characters. You know, Travis Bickle wants to do something to stop the badness, where Arthur Fleck doesn't really know what he wants to do, but he wants things to change. He wants people to treat him better or treat the world better and each other. In many ways, I think this is Todd Phillips' first film. All the films that came previous to this that he did felt like short films or him finding his way. And this felt like really his first film in many ways. It's humorous, it's dramatic, it's scary, it's violent. It's disturbing in many ways, but it's a brilliant and crafted film. Visually, it's quite striking. The cinematography is fantastic. A lot of the shots are really great. There's great use of slow motion and depth of field shots and long shots, and we really get a sense of the grittiness of the world that we're looking at. And it really captures the 80s in many ways and the gritty dirtiness of the city. It really puts you there. You really feel you're part of this world, and it's a world you don't really want to be part of because it's so gritty and disturbing and violent, and it's kind of disgusting in many ways. I really love the music choices here. They really suit the scenes that the music is part of. They elevate the scenes to something more interesting and fascinating than they would have originally. And the overall feel of this film is really great. All the acting is really fantastic and really solid in this film. I think De Niro does a great job. He's kind of an interesting, late night show host who does interviews and stuff and really sort of calls out Arthur Fleck in many ways, and it's kind of interesting the dynamic between these two. But he gives a solid performance here that's reminiscent of the character who sort of played King in comedy in a lot of ways. ZZ Beetz is really great in her role here. She doesn't have a big role in the film, she's in a lot of it. But the scenes that she is in do serve a purpose. I just wish they took her character in a different direction. I wish they did something different with her character that was more interesting. I can see why they did what they did, but I just thought they could have done something a bit different with her character. And there's a variety of other really great performances in here, but the real standout here is Joaquin Phoenix. What a revelation he is in this film. He's absolutely astonishing to watch. He's an actor at the top of his game who's done a variety of great roles through his life, but it's ultimately this last few years that he's done some really fantastic work, and this is a great example of it. It's a very raw performance. It's very unhinged and there's a freeness to it. I love his sense of play in this film. And it is a dark character, but he brings such humanity to it in such a great way. You really believe this character. He's unrestrained in this film. They just let him loose. And it's this feeling throughout the film. You're not quite sure what Joaquin Phoenix is going to do or what the character Arthur Fleck's going to do. It feels like Todd Phillips just left the camera on in a lot of scenes and let Joaquin Phoenix feel the scene. And that gave him such a free ability to create a really interesting character in many ways. He's unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do or say next. And it sort of gives this feeling of dread through the film in a way. And it reminds me of a lot of the other interpretations of the Joker where you don't quite know what they're going to do next. This really encapsulates that in many ways. He's a powerful actor. He's fantastic at being restrained and quiet, and he conveys so much emotion with his just a look on his face and his actions rather than words. But when he is vocal, it's quite powerful and extraordinary to watch. There's moments where he's freely dancing, which add to the sort of scene that's transpiring. The way he smiles, the way at the start of the film he has this sad look on his face and he puts his fingers in his mouth like this, to give this idea that he's smiling, but inside he's broken. You can see in his eyes it's such a sadness. I thought this was a powerful opening to the film, and he's just a really powerful actor to watch. There's a handful of scenes that really stick out to me where he's quite visceral and quite vocal in his performance. The two that really stand out most are he has an altercation with Thomas Wayne in a public bathroom. That's fantastic. What he's trying to express there, how he talks about how nasty the world is and how horrific people are to each other. I really love this scene. It's so powerful, and he just blows the other actor out of the water. He's just phenomenal. It's just an intense performance, and I loved it. The other scene that really sparked my interest in his performance vocally would be the scene between him and De Niro. It's absolutely fantastic. And what he conveys there and talking about art is subjective and talking about comedy is subjective, and it just sort of is such a powerful scene in that regard. There's a real quietness to Arthur in this film. He doesn't say a lot, and when he speaks it's kind of soft and calm and collected, but as the film goes on, he starts to lose that calm and collective way. When he's being abused or accosted or beaten up, he has this sort of look on his face and he's sort of smiling, but inside seething. He's violent, he's angry, he wants to unleash on people that have talked down to him, that have pushed him around, that have been nasty and mean to him. And that comes out in a variety of scenes in this film. Yes, there is violence here. He inflicts violence on particular people, and there's one scene that's very violent, but it adds to the scene, I guess. It adds to the frustration, anger he feels towards his character he unleashes on. And there's just such a freeness to the character after a while, and his acceptance of who he is and the struggles he has, and it forms him into this very interesting person. What I like most is he doesn't start out in this film to become Joker. He doesn't start out to be that way. It just ends that way by his environment and the shaping of his life and what transpires for him throughout the film. And when he acts out and does what he does, it isn't to motivate people. It isn't to be part of a movement or anything. It's just how he feels. And people connect to that in the movie. A lot of the society connects to the way he acts and what he does. And I can see that, the idea in this film, there's a lot of fear, controversy around the film because of the violence in it. And yes, it is violent, but it's a cautionary tale. It talks about what happens if you do decide to go down this path. I don't think it glorifies violence, and I don't think it shows violence as a fun and interesting thing that people should do. Anytime that Joaquin Phoenix was on screen, I was glued to his performance. I was fascinated by him. I felt it very inspiring, very creepy, and just very expressive. He was able to express so much in this 2-hour film, and it was brilliantly executed. I look forward to seeing what he does next. Now, there are things in this film that I thought could have been a little better or different, or it sort of niggled me a little bit. Not stuff I hated, just stuff that I think they could have done something different with than what they did. One of the things that I did wish they did something else with was Zazie Beetz' character. She serves a purpose in the film, and we get to see her in this sort of interesting sort of character that she's playing next to Joaquin Phoenix. But I just feel the choices they made with her, they could have made them differently. I can see why they did what they did, because it was the story they were telling and it was the direction the film was going in. But I just feel that she could have served a much bigger purpose. There are a lot of scenes that I feel could have ended earlier than they did, especially at the end. It ends in a particular way that I thought would have been perfect for the ending, but there's an added thing right on the end, and I can see why they did it, and it does serve a bit of a purpose, but I just felt it could have ended earlier, and there are other scenes like that. I feel that sometimes throughout the film, Todd Phillips felt like he had to explain everything to people rather than letting it unfold as it should. I just felt they could have been a bit more subtle with their choices there in these particular scenes. Final thoughts. Really, I think what this film looks at is the idea of how nature versus nurture debate, how someone's environment and their upbringing can really affect them in such horrific way sometimes. It's a great example for Arthur Fleck. He's a character who's just been so affected by what he's seen and experienced that it shaped him into such a tragic and damaged sort of figure. And I think this film really looks at that. It looks at that idea quite well. And that sometimes it isn't just one thing that can cause someone to go down a crazy or dark path. It's a variety of things. Ultimately, like I said before, this is a cautionary tale in my opinion. That this is what can sometimes happen. It isn't positive, it isn't good, and it does affect many people, but it's sometimes the only way that that person can express how they feel. And I'm not condoning anything that happens in this film, the violence or anything like that. I'm just saying I can understand sometimes why people are pushed to go and do something bad because they feel that's their only way to express how they're feeling. It also makes you think about the way we treat people. And if we treated people better, maybe these violent outbursts that people have mightn't happen. Or maybe they're just going to happen anyway and there's nothing that we can do about it. But I just thought this film really looked at that, how people are treated and how people treat each other. And how that can have effect on an individual person or a group of people. It looks at the media too and how the media can make things look and feel and people just accept that as truth. But that isn't always the case. And I think this film sort of looks at that as well. I'm going to give Joker 4.5 out of 5. I really love this film. I thought it was well done. There are, like I said, it isn't perfect. There are things that I had a little bit of issues with, but overall I thought this was a really brilliant executed film. And Joaquin Phoenix is astonishing in this and does such a fantastic job. I'll be surprised if he isn't nominated for his performance here. And hats off to Todd Philips for what he's able to craft here. And this is going on my top 10 of the year as number 2. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.